Welcome to the Bag Maker's Workroom. I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today is Thursday, December 26, 2024. Hi, everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining us for tonight's live stream. Tonight, we're going to talk about cutting tools and techniques. This is a busy time of year. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and happy Hanukkah to those of you who celebrate Hanukkah. It's definitely a busy time, and we know that it's important to us, and it means a lot to us that you took some time out of your busy schedule to spend about a half hour with us on this Thursday evening. The Bag Maker's Workroom is every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The best part of live streams is that I get to interact with all of you. So if you have any questions, make sure you type them in the chat. And time permitting, at the end of the live stream, we will go over as many questions as possible. If you cannot watch live, no worries. You can rewatch the episode on our YouTube channel at any time at your leisure. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Simply Classic Scoop. And this is just where we remind you about some things that are going on behind the scenes and some classes and different things we have. The very first thing I want to tell you about is our Filtech thread should be in tomorrow. So we have it all kind of set up on the site, ready to go. So as soon as it gets here, we can turn it on. So be watching for that. Either late tomorrow or maybe Saturday, it should be up. And then, of course, that's the Fusion 45, the Text 45 thread that we featured on last week's live. It is great with domestic machines. Of course, we went over all those machines last week. And towards the end of this episode, I do want to go over a few comments that some of you made, which I think are fantastic. And I love that y'all are emailing us and participating and kind of giving your feedback on some machines. So we'll do that in just a bit. I also want to remind you that we do have our leather bag making by machine class, the Banda bag, which is this bag right up here. We've talked about it's this green one. And the class is going to be from January 17th to January 27th. We do have a few spots left. So if you're interested, make sure you go ahead and sign up. And that includes 6 pre-recorded videos and 3 Zoom sessions. It includes the kit, leather, stiffeners, glue, applicators, the pattern, the lining, the hardware. I mean, pretty much everything you need to make the bag, less a sewing machine and thread and your cutting materials. Okay, it's pretty much all inclusive. It's for people who have never worked with leather before and would like to try it. We have you do pretty much everything. You're gonna cut your leather. You're going to glue the stiffeners on, and I'm going to walk you through that process step by step. And it's a great class. We've already had 3 sessions of the class. Everybody really enjoyed it. We're working on new classes for 2025, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But again, the Banda bag will be January 17th through 27th. Okay. The other thing we want to remind you about is that we will be in Chattanooga February 28th and March 1st. And I do want to mention that we are in the process of trying to get in some other areas of the United States. It looks like we may be going to Michigan in May. So once we finalize the plans for that, we'll let you know. And that way you can go ahead and participate in that as well, because it's going to be fun, right? I love going to places and meeting everyone. And the last thing we want to remind you about is December 31st, which I think is Tuesday, is the last day to get the quarterly mystery subscription box until March. So if you have not signed up for our quarterly mystery subscription box yet, you need to do that now, or at least before Tuesday, to get subscribed. Otherwise, our next opening will be from March 15th to March 31st, 2025. For those of you who have a subscription that's running out, because a lot of people signed up last year in the first quarter, we're going to send you an email. We're going to remind you that, hey, you received your last subscription box in December. If you'd like to continue, you need to go ahead and sign up again. It is for a year. If you signed up in, say, September, then your year runs September, December, March of 2025, June of 2025, and then your subscription will run out. So it's always a rolling calendar year. Now, the box is always a brand new Simply Classic pattern, something that no one has ever seen before. We have some really great patterns that we went over in the live stream a couple weeks ago. I showed you the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. And of course, if you're subscribed, you know what all of those bags were. In the box, you get the faux leather. It's always going to be faux leather, lining, hardware to make the bag, as well as a PDF pattern and exclusive access to a YouTube video with no ads that you can go ahead and watch how to make the bag. Okay. And then of course, there's a bunch of other goodies in the kit. A lot of times we try to put things in there that'll either assist you in making the bag, or sometimes they're just fun things. You just never know what you're going to get. So we highly encourage you to go ahead and do that. Everyone that has received them has really enjoyed them. So make sure you sign out. You have until, again, December 31st to do that. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is featured product, our featured product. And since we're talking about cutting tools and techniques today, I want to go over some of the cutting tools that we have available on the website. I have a lot of different kinds of scissors, and I use them all for different things. So we're going to switch to the overhead camera. And the first thing I want to show you is most of my products are Kai products. Okay, now these scissors are what I would consider like, these are the scissors that nobody else in this whole place is allowed to touch. These are my favorite scissors. And the reason why I like them is because they have a nice soft grip and they are ergonomically correct. You've got a bend in the scissors. You got nice big place here for your hands. They cut very, very well. They're lightweight, and you can just place that scissor right on the board and cut if you need to. They're definitely my go-to scissors when I am cutting fabrics or faux leathers and I'm using my scissors for it. Okay, so these are 9-inch scissors, and they are the N5230 Kai scissors. Okay, another pair of Kai scissors, and we have these all over the place here in our workroom, is a 8.5-inch Kai scissor. Okay, so here it is out of the box. We use these to cut things like our zippers. Sometimes we use them to cut our paper patterns out and things like that. They're kind of our use-all scissors. They have a nice soft handle. You can see here how that handle moves. They have a slight bend to them. They're really comfortable in your hand. And it is the N5220 Kai scissor. Okay, fantastic. And Kais are made in Japan. They're really great scissors. I love Kais. Okay, moving on, I'm going to show you the pair that I use to cut corners. Like, for instance, if we have a rounded edge on something, I'm going to reach for these. These are super sharp. They have a nice point on them, and they cut through fabric and faux really easy. And it's great for making those little V cuts to go around curves and little snips here and there. It does come with a little protective case as well as the scissors themselves. And this is the V5000 series, specifically V5135 5.5-inch scissors. And again, you'll see me use these in videos. They're my go-to when I'm having to make small snips and things to get around curves and such. Okay, probably one of my, and again, I don't want to say these are my favorite, but they kind of are my favorite. These are the Femore scissors, and these are a 6-inch comfort handle scissor. You can see the area where you cut is very small. A lot of it is actually handled, and you can see how soft these are. These are the scissors I keep by my machine so that when I'm pulling the thread off the machine, I can snip my thread. I like them because they're nice and big. The handle's big, and I'm not having to use tiny little snips or anything. I'm able to just grab them. My fingers fit in there. I can snip and then move on. You'll see these in my videos all the time. I'd like to say they're my favorite, but it's my favorite for what I do, right? I've got so many favorites, and I've got so many different pairs, but these Femore scissors are fantastic. And again, everything I'm showing you today is linked in the description. okay? Because these are the things I love that I just love to use. Okay, the other thing, again, is a Kai. It is a Kai rotary cutter, and this is a 45-inch rotary blade. And the thing that I love so much about this particular one, and mine happens to be yellow instead of blue, is that, well, a couple things. It's got a light and a heavy setting on this rotary cutter. So depending on what you're cutting, if I'm cutting lining, I can move it over to the light setting. If I'm cutting something heavier like faux, I can move it over to the heavy setting. And then there's an actual off, which is right in the middle. And what I like about it so much is you can see there's no button and nothing you have to push to have the blade extract, okay? All you have to do is move it to the setting you want. You push on it, and as you push on it, the blade releases and you can cut. And then when you release, the blade goes back in. So you're not having to constantly use your thumb to go back and forth, you know, open, close, or I'm really bad about a lot of times opening rotary cutters, cutting and setting them down, and that blade is sticking out. So these are really, this is a great option. I think it's a lot of it's a safety issue. And if you like the 45mm blade, you can certainly get the cutter. Now it is a Kai. Even these this says OmniGrid on here, but I don't know if you can see right here, it does say Kai. They really, they work together, OmniGrid and Kai, to get this done. And again, this is the same rotary cutter, just a different color. Just a great one, okay? And the last thing I want to talk to you about, which is certainly something you've seen me use 100 times before, you've seen me talk about it 100 times before, and that is my Zoid craft knife. I love this thing. And the thing I like about it so much is it's got a metal handle and it's got this foam finger grip. Okay. So it makes it really nice to hold. It's got a good weight to it. And to release the blade, to change the blade, it's super easy. All you have to do is hold the finger grip and just unscrew it. And that blade comes right out. You put it in, you have like a little 4-prong top there. You just go ahead and slide that in, and then you twist it to tighten it, and it's tightened. It comes with a cap, a plastic cap, and the cutter, it looks like this. It comes with the cap and one blade, and then we also have 5 blade refills for these. So these are great for if you need to cut out maybe a zipper opening or something where you need a lot more detail, maybe doing some hidden strap connectors, because you can get that point right in the spot where you want to cut and then drag it, and you make sure that the point is done. So for instance, if this grid here, we have a little grid here on our grid board. If I want to get right in that spot to cut, I can go ahead and stick my knife right in at that spot and then drag. And I know that that corner is cut really well. Okay. So I use this to put my bag tags on. I use this for my magnetic snaps. I use it for so many things. So I really highly recommend these Zoids. Okay. So moving on, we are going to talk about sharpening your sewing skills. And interestingly, we're talking about cutting tools. So we're really going to sharpen our skills tonight, right? And use some of these things here that we have to go ahead and cut some things out. But before we get started, I do want to talk to you about a couple little tips and tricks that I use for patterns. And the first one, and we're going to switch back to the overhead, is not always, but a lot of times, if I have a pattern that I use over and over and over, for instance, this is the Simply Classic Clutch. We can get some acrylic templates for this, right? No problem. We could certainly do that. But acrylic templates are expensive, and I understand that. So sometimes my workaround is to use poster board. And so what I will do is I'll just go to the dollar store and I'll get poster board. Doesn't matter to me what color it is. And you can actually just use an Elmer's glue stick. And you take and you put that, just go ahead and put it on the poster board, put your pattern piece down, and then go ahead and cut your pattern piece out. And it's really going to increase the longevity of your paper pattern pieces. In addition, it gives it some heft so that when you do place it on your faux, you can cut around it a lot easier because you have a little bit of a lip here. Okay. So I highly recommend that you use poster board on and for your pattern pieces if it's something you're going to use over and over. You know, a lot of times what I'll do is maybe make the pattern the first time. If I really like it and I really want to do it again, I'll just go ahead and put it on the poster board. Okay, so that's a really great solution for the longevity of that. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is fussy cutting and centering a pattern. And to do that, first I want to show you this alley B. A lot of times when we're at shows, people ask me, how do you get the pattern right in the center, and how do you get it to match up with other pattern pieces? And that's always a big question. How did she do that? How did she do that? So I'm going to give you a couple of tips on how to do that tonight. So we have a piece of faux here, and I'm just going to unwind this, and it is one of our large scale crocodile. And I have the alley B pattern pieces, the front band and the front piece. So the first thing that I do is, this is the front piece, this is the full piece. I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise. Okay, just make sure I have a really nice fold. Then I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to grab one of my just Omni-Grid rulers, and I'm going to find a spot on the faux that I want my pattern centered on. So let's say I want this large part of this crocodile centered right in the middle of my alley B. So I'm going to find what the center of that pattern is, and I'm going to place my ruler right against the center. Okay, so here's my center line. That's where I want the center to be. I'm just going to put that one of the edges right up against that center piece, or that center line. Then I'm going to take my pattern piece, and I'm going to move this up just a little bit so you can see the bottom. I'm going to make sure that my ruler is lined up at the bottom so it's nice and straight. I'm going to take my pattern piece and I'm going to just place it right against the ruler. Okay. Then I'm just going to hold the pattern piece down, move my ruler out of the way, open this up, go ahead and put a couple wonder clips. And now I know that when I cut this piece out, that pattern or design or whatever it is going to be exactly centered on this front piece. So obviously if we have acrylic templates, that would be great because usually the acrylic templates are clear and we can make sure it's centered. But I use this method more often than not to center and match up pattern pieces. So for instance, if we want to match the bottom band to that, let's say we want the bottom band to be this part here, and then we're going to have the front piece line up. We want to make sure that this entire line is centered on the front of the bag. I'm going to take my bottom band piece, and this bottom piece you do place on the fold. So I'm just going to take and place it right on that center mark. I will go ahead and cut this piece out. And then that will be my center mark for my front piece. I will place my ruler, do just like I told you, go ahead and line it up, open it up, cut it out. And now when I go to attach my bottom band to my front piece, these are going to be exactly matched up. Okay. Works great every time. It really does. It's really a great option. So the other thing I want to talk to you about, and this is another cutting tool that I use quite a bit, and it's kind of a replacement for acrylic templates. I'm going to use this here as an example, is my Creative Grids ruler. Now, this Creative Grids ruler is one of my favorite rulers. I reach for this ruler almost every single time I do a pattern. And the thing I like about it so much is that it has really 4 edges on it. You've got a pointed edge, which I usually don't use because if I cut any straight lines, I'm just using my regular rotary cutter and ruler. But then you have a 3-inch corner, you have a 1.5-inch corner, and you have a 2-inch corner. So I'm going to use the Simply Classic Clutch as an example. Most of my patterns, if not all, are using one of these 3 corners to cut the pattern piece. So for instance, for the Simply Classic Clutch, it's a 2-inch. So I can actually take this, line it up, and you can see the edge of that ruler is exactly lined up on the edge of that pattern piece. Okay. So what I would do in this case is I would take a piece of faux, I would cut it out to the length and the width that I need without worrying about the corners. Okay, just length and width. So let's say that that's this piece right here. I'm going to lay my pattern piece on top, and you can see length and width wise, it's perfect, but the corners are not cut. So from here, you can either leave the pattern piece on or you can take it off. Either way, it does not matter. And I can use my ruler and my rotary cutter and just go around and cut this right off. Let's see if I can do this. Now, turn it. Well, it's not going to work. Just need a new blade. Okay, I do. Sorry about that. Try it one more time. There we go. Well, it's coming off. You get the idea. So obviously I need a new blade on that, but it'll cut this right off. Okay. And then what you can do is just take and turn it and do the other corner, either with or without the pattern piece. And then again, you can just use this and just cut it right off. Okay. And again, we're just going to pretend that that blade works because it is obviously super dull. So we're going to have to change it out. But that's a great way to cut these corners without having to worry about having an acrylic template or using scissors or trying to freehand this with a rotary cutter, going around and trying to freehand it, and then you end up cutting part of your pattern, or you cut into your pattern piece without meaning to. Okay. So I highly recommend this Creative Grids ruler. Again, we do have these on the website. They're really fantastic, and I reach for it all the time. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is perfect pairings. And each week we want to talk to you about a pairing that we recommend. We have a lot of great new faux on the website. And last week I posted a video. I believe it was Stephanie sent a bag in and she said, hey, can you maybe replicate this bag? What would be a good pattern for it? And we did a hack using the Bircham. And so it's this bag right here. This is actually the Bircham. And I'm going to show you what the Bircham really looks like. It is this right here. Okay, so basically I showed you how to turn this bag into this bag. So a lot of times you don't need a whole new pattern for a bag. You need to take one of your existing patterns and alter it a little bit, and you can get a really fantastic looking bag. I show you how to do this binding. I mean, it's just really, it's a pretty good video. So take a look at it if you have not seen it yet. But our perfect pairings tonight is, of course, we're going to go to the overhead, and we're going to show you let me take this hardware away for just a minute. We used our geometric triangles in the black and white. We used our solid black. And then for lining, we actually used the Tilda fabric in the, I think it's called stripes.
Seam stripe.
Seam stripe, okay. And you can see there are tiny little stripes in this, and I think we showed you this in the past. And I just love the teal color. I think it looks great with black and white. And then, of course, you can use gunmetal hardware for this. We had the gunmetal in it, and it really worked out well. So for our perfect pairings, we think that that is a great combination. A lot of you have already purchased it. You watched the video, and you went ahead and went on there and did it, and we appreciate that. And we just think it's going to make a fantastic bag no matter what bag you make. We're going to stay right here on the overhead, and I do want to show you one other thing that's new to our website. And that is these new thumb locks. So a lot of you have seen the slim thumb locks that we have. And this is just a bigger, fatter, chunkier version of that. We have them in the gunmetal, nickel, and bronze. And I'm going to pull one up here, and you can see it's super beefy. It's nice and chunky. Clicks in really great. It comes with a washer for the back. And then, of course, it also comes with a couple screws, so you can screw that to your flap or whatever part of your bag that you want to showcase it. Okay, so that is a new product. We're just referring to it as the thumb lock. The other thumb locks we have for the Sienna are called the thin, I believe. Slim thumb locks. Okay. All right. So we are now going to do the Thursday thread, and this is turned into one of my favorite segments of the live stream. I love the Thursday thread because a lot of times it's stories from you or it's a little bit of sewing history. And what we're going to do tonight is we are going to go ahead and continue with the sewing history that we started with last week. So we are kind of talking about the evolution of bag making and talked about how way back, there were bags. Even BC, there were bags. And we showed you some photos of some. We showed you some carvings that we saw where there were cave carvings, where there were people holding bags. And so bags have been around for a long time. We told you about how a lot of them were drawstring. And now we're going to continue on. And we are going to talk about like the 1600s forward. Okay. So in the 1600s, it was really fashionable for women to wear like really big skirts, right? And what they would do is they would end up wearing their bags underneath their skirts because they had so much volume. To add any more volume was just too much. So the bags would be underneath the skirt, and eventually, just as kind of a side note, what that turned into was adding pockets to clothing. So there's really no pockets in clothing before that. But by having the bags underneath their skirts, they realized it was really nice and easy and accessible to be able to get to those from the outside of your clothing, which is where pockets came from. Okay. So during the 1600s, the men stopped carrying bags as much. I mean, unless they were on a horse or carrying it for a specific reason, they kind of stopped. And a lot of the women started carrying bags. And wealthy women really were carrying the small, very delicate bags. Okay. Your average everyday women were still carrying larger bags because they were using it for practical purposes to carry things from point A to point B. But your wealthy women were carrying very small, petite, more fashionable bags. So by the late 1700s, women's clothing became more form-fitting. So all the voluminous skirts, etc., have pretty much went away by this time. They were much more form-fitting, and they didn't have a lot of room for pockets. So they started carrying these reticules. And the reticules are basically a pouch. And you can see here some examples of some reticules. They're small drawstring bags. A lot of times they were embroidered or they were beaded. And believe it or not, a lot of people were scandalized if they were carrying a reticule because they were almost looked at as if they were wearing their undergarments on the outside of their clothing. Okay, so I guess it was a very scandalous thing to carry one of these. But part of the reason why these were so popular is because a lot of women had the skills to create this kind of bag. They had the skills to create the drawstring and to create these pouch bags. So we're kind of moving on now. And as we saw last week, a lot of people began using leather goods more mid-1800s. So as we continue on in the 1800s, we're finding that leather became more popular. And there was a couple reasons for this. One was the Industrial Revolution, and that made the leather tanning process much more efficient, and it created a higher demand for leather goods. Okay, so the production increased quite a bit. It was in a lot more higher demand. The tanning process became easier, and so it became a little bit more widespread. Another big factor was transportation. So basically, by this time, people were traveling more. You're getting on trains, and they were traveling from point A to point B, and they needed reliable leather bags to take them from those places. And so modern leather bags started out as like small suitcases, and they'd have a lock and a key and a little ticket compartment. And that way you could get on the plane, or excuse me, not plane, you get on the train at that point. There are no planes. And it gave the women a lot more independence because they didn't have to depend on their husbands or somebody else to carry their bags for them. So we have some more slides here of some of the luxury designers that we know and love today. And one of them is Louis Vuitton. And you can see here that Louis Vuitton started out making trunks. And the trunks were very high quality and they had a flat top. And the thing that made it so nice is that they were stackable, because a lot of trunks didn't have a flat top. They had a rounded top. And I think a lot of you can probably think about some of the rounded trunks you may have seen in antique shops, or I think I even have one in my house, and it's an old trunk and it's got that rounded top, and it just wasn't as practical. And on this trunk, you can probably see that the LV, the same logo that they use today, is on this trunk. And we were really curious about that. We're going to get more into specific designers in later episodes and specifically talk about Louis Vuitton. But one of the things is that this was such a high quality trunk that a lot of people were trying to replicate and do the same thing he was doing. And they were trying to steal his designs and etc. So he started painting the LV on the trunks, because he knew that not everybody could afford to hand paint trunks. So he started doing that. And by doing that, it put him in another class. So it wasn't just Louis Vuitton, Prada, Gucci. Those were all companies that were making these trunks. And they were also making suitcases for women so they could travel. But they also realized that women needed to keep their more personal things in a smaller bag, and more close to the hip. So they began designing leather handbags. And so one of the first was a Louis Vuitton steamer bag, which is still made today. Okay. So at the time, this time, some people were traveling by train, but a lot of people were still traveling by horse and carriage. And Hermes was well known for making saddlebags and feed bags for the wealthy. And then they began making handbags as well. Now, these are modern versions of some of their most famous bags that started many, many, many years ago, back in the 1800s. One is the HAC bag, which was created in 1892 to hold a saddle. And it eventually inspired the Birkin, which I thought was really interesting. And then when cars overtook horses and carriages as the main mode of transportation, Hermes introduced the bolide bag, which was designed to fit into the trunk of a car. And it was the first of its kind to have a zipper. And so you can see here in this slide, the modern bolide bag there on the right, and the older bags that were designed in the 1800s, 1892, late 1800s, really looked almost exactly like this. So it wasn't just luxury designers who influenced bag trends. In 1944, LL Bean released their first water-resistant canvas tote. It was designed to carry ice from the car to the ice box, but it quickly became a carry-all tote. And look at that bag and tell me what it looks like to you, because I can tell you that today that design is still here. And obviously this is a Marc Jacobs dupe that we did back, several months ago, but it's basically the same design. Okay, so that has stood the test of time. I mean, it is amazing to me. When I saw this picture, I went, oh my gosh, that's exactly like the bag today. It really hasn't changed much. Now, it cost $3, and in today's money, that would basically be $50. I thought that was really interesting. I just love this. I just love the slide. Okay, then World War II came about. And in World War II, resources like leather and metal were very scarce. So designers had to make do with other materials. So for upscale bags, they used a lot of exotic leather, like lizard and ostrich. And for people on a budget, cotton bags became more popular. A lot of women also crocheted their bags and did patchwork bags. So this is what a couple of ads that we saw. One was from the Atlanta Journal in 1941, and one was from the Standard Sentinel in 1944. And I just want to read this to you because I think it's really interesting. I love the way they did the ad, and it's really not that different from the way we do ads today. So it says, even your handbag is cotton this year. Meaning, of course, you know, they went from leather or whatever to back to cotton because of the war. Daisies don't tell, the old saying goes. But daisies on this cotton handbag do tell one thing, that anyone who chooses this roomy purse is fashion-wise. Pouch-shaped, it will hold everything. Cigarettes, cosmetics, comb, and all those things we women love to cram into our purse. And because the sides are soft, it never gets that deplorable overstuffed look. But the frame is the piece de resistance. For this lovely daisy and pattern, it has a lovely daisy pattern embossed on a gold frame. And that's what you see there at the very, very top. Those are daisies that have been embossed on a gold frame. And then inside is tucked a compact with a matching daisy pattern. So it came as a set. Nice price. And here's a handbag you'll enjoy all summer. And I just thought that was so cute. And then the ad on the right says patched lizard handbag. So again, they were using either cotton or they were using more exotic leathers. So this is one of the exotic leather ads. It says twice as handsome as its picture. They add a spot of color and sparkle to your winter wardrobe. Lovely pliable skins, created into a handsome style. Gorgeous shades, toast, navy, red, black, green, brown, gray. Also featured in our exclusive collection are snake skins and tough, hard-wearing ostrich handbags. So I thought that was really interesting. I love looking at those ads. I love looking at how they were marketing them and how they were trying to, you know, basically use what they had, right? And you know, throughout the ages, isn't that what we always have done? Use what we have and get creative with what you have. So next time, we're going to talk about the 1950s to today. So basically, we're going to talk about a turning point where more celebrities were affecting what people carried, and designer handbag just designs, you know, generally what they carried. Let's face it, even today, celebrities influence that, right? You see, I think that one of the first Dior bags was something that Princess Diana carried, and then it's like all of a sudden everybody wanted a bag, and you know, all those really big people influence that. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about how it's changed over the past 75 years. Okay. So I just love this history part. Okay. So we are going to move on to Artistry Avenue. And I just want to remind you that Artistry Avenue is where we feature 3 of our customers' bags, 3 of our, the people who have either sent us a email at share@simplyclassic.net or posted on our Facebook group, which is the Simply Classic bag making community. You can do one or the other. If we feature your bag on Artistry Avenue, you will get a Simply Classic PDF pattern of your choice. And if you do not know how to post on Facebook, or you do not have Facebook, again, you can certainly email us directly at share@simplyclassic.net. Okay, so the first artist we'd like to feature on Artistry Avenue, this was made by Renee Perry. And Renee made this really gorgeous sienna bag. She used faux leather and waterproof canvas. She has slip and zipper pockets that are made using a fabric she bought in Paris in October. So I just love that. I think that's fantastic. Renee does have a YouTube channel called Renee Perry Designs on YouTube. So check her out. The next one was made by Patricia Gonzalez Davis, and she also made a sienna. She made it out of a burgundy leather, and it's so pretty. You know, I love the look of leather, and I love the feel of leather. It looks like she made the tall size, the large. And of course, she made a matching lining to go with it. It's really beautiful. And then our last artist that we'd like to feature is Christine Walsh Bennett. She made the Julie. And the thing that I really wanted to show you on this bag, since this bag is all about cutting tools and techniques, is the pattern cutting on this. Look at how well she matched that plaid. I mean, she really did a great job with it. And let's face it, that could not have been easy. It is really a lot of lines in that, and she did a really fantastic job. Okay, so if you were featured on today's Artistry Avenue, go ahead and email share@simplyclassic.net. Let us know that you were featured on tonight's live stream, and we will go ahead and send you the PDF pattern of your choice. Okay, we're going to move on to some Q&A, but before we do, I want to tell you that we are going to have a giveaway tonight, and the giveaway is 3 PDF Simply Classic patterns of your choice. It is open internationally, so anyone can enter. And what you need to do is type the word pattern in the chat. And we will give you some time to do that. We'll go ahead and do some Q&A, and then we'll let the computer pick a winner. Okay? So I'd like to read a couple messages from our Simply Classic community, and they were both posted on the website, on YouTube, and or were sent to us. And I think they're really important because it really touches on a lot of what we talked about last week with the domestic bag making, okay, and using domestic machines. So on YouTube, Sally posted, I sew on a basic Jomi that was $400. I can use Tex 45 top and bobbin to sew 6 layers of marine vinyl and 2 waterproof canvas. I did find that I can't use the snap-on feet. The thick layers get hung up under the snap part of the foot. It is a pain using a regular foot, she said. I don't have a problem with double-sided tape, but I make sure to stay away from the universal needles. Supposedly they don't have the coating that keeps your needle from gumming up, which I think that is correct. A hump jumper is important, which it is. That's one of the things we failed to mention last week, so make sure you keep that in mind. And she said she only wished she had a quilt bed because sometimes it could be a little awkward trying to hold the bag up in place while she's trying to get a good steady stitch. So she said, anyway, people shouldn't be so worried about not having an industrial and give it a go. And I love that. I really think that was a great little comment. And I love her telling us about her machine, what she uses. Okay. And then Lesley said, I'm really happy with my straight stitch semi-industrial Almeida EF1, which is identical to the Jomi 1600P. So those are a couple of machines that we did not mention last week at all. I have not had the opportunity to sew on those, but Lesley says they work great. And we featured Lesley in a episode a couple of weeks ago. She makes some beautiful bags and does a fantastic job. So obviously her machine works great for her. And then Kim said, I have several machines, including an industrial one, which she calls the Beast. She says, your Burnett looks very nice. Probably a good thing I'm running out of space. I know many excellent quilters who swear by the Bernina brand. She said she owns a Juki TL 2010 and she loves it in capital letters. I use it for 90% of my bag making, but when the seams get too thick, she moves over to the Beast, meaning the industrial machine. And then finally, Robin emailed me and she said that she has 2 brother machines. One is a Luminaire 2, and neither one of the machines sew with the Tex 45 or the Tex 70. She said, but she does have a Jomi HD9, which we did mention last week. I have taught on those, and I know those work great. And it absolutely loves the heavier Tex threads. It is important to make sure the top thread is the same as the bobbin and that the thread path you use is for heavier threads. So what she means by that is on the Bennett, for instance, you have to thread the machine a little bit differently if you're using a heavier thread than if you're using just a polyester or cotton. So just make sure that if you have one of these semi-industrials or a straight stitch machine, that you make sure you follow that path for the heavier thread. She said also, when you begin sewing, pull on the bobbin thread to make sure it is wound securely, as it tends to unspool a little because it's bonded thread. And it seems like it's a little slick and uncoils easily, and that is the case. And that's the reason why some people say they can't use it in their bobbin. But I think that's a great point, Robin. If you hold that bobbin thread a little bit when you start sewing, hopefully it will just eliminate that problem totally. She said the HD9 will handle both the texts 45 and 70, which is interesting because I did not know that. And she says that it handles it with ease. And it's just a great idea to make sure you check that bobbin tension when changing the thread thickness. And that is a good point. A lot of these straight stitch machines like the Bennett, the Jomi HD9, some of the Juki, TL11s, whatever, they have manual tension, just like an industrial machine. And again, I showed you that in the video where you can actually go through it and tighten and loosen the bobbin. It's not mechanical. It's not all in the computer. It's not automatic. You can change them, and they're super easy to change. So just kind of make sure you keep that in mind. As you change your threads, the thickness of your threads, you may have to change your tension settings. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a little bit of Q&A. And we have Gail asks, the tool you use to cut the end of your straps, where do you suggest we get one and what size? Okay, so what Gail is referring to is the leather punch. And those are the rounded punches that I use to get super nice rounded edges. And actually I can show you on this bag right here. I'm going to go over to the overhead real quick. And you will see on here that, see how this has a rounded edge here at the end of the strap? So I have a tool to do that. It's called an edge punch. And where you get that is at a leather supplier store. So you're going to look at Tandy Leather, Springfield Leather, one of those leather stores to find that. You can find them on Amazon. But let me tell you that when it comes to those end punches, you get what you pay for. I had ordered some from Amazon one time, and there was like a set of several different sizes, and I was all excited. And the first time I hit it, the thing bent. So learn from my mistake. Don't order those on Amazon. You can order a lot on Amazon, but that's not one of them. Go to one of the leather suppliers and get it. And if they're, I can't remember last time, it's been a while, maybe $50. I mean, they can get a little high, but you're going to have it forever. You can sharpen it, and they are really a great tool to use to make those ends look a little bit better, especially if you don't want to use pre-made hardware strap ends. Okay. So Stephanie asks, does one roll of faux make the hack, or what do you need? So she's talking about this hack right here. And I did use one roll of the black and white triangles. And then I used a roll, and you don't really need the whole roll, it would be the one of the black for the accents. Yeah. So Nancy says, my Juki TL 2010Q uses both texts 45 and 70. Tension bobbin is also important. So yeah, just exactly what Robin said. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you saying that. Jennifer says, you can buy 2 bobbin cases to make it easier to swap them out too. Now that's a great suggestion. So what she's talking about is in some of these machines where you have to adjust the bobbin tension when you use a thicker thread in the bobbin, to just get an extra case, set one for the 70, one for the 45, or whatever your thread tension is. Maybe just mark it with a Sharpie on there, and that way you know which is which. And then you can just switch those out without having to change the tension every time. That is a really great idea. I love that. Okay, so let's see who our winner is tonight for the pattern giveaway. And that is Sandra Serrano. And so congratulations, Sandra. You won 3 PDF patterns of your choice And just email share@simplyclassic.net. Let us know that you were the winner. And then we will go ahead and send you your PDF patterns. Congratulations. Okay. So if that is everything for this evening, I want to say thank you so much. I just want to extend a quick thank you. 2024 was an amazing year for us. It was a little crazy at times. We had a few hiccups with hurricanes and no power and internet for a while, but we got through it and we're better off for it. Everything's good to go. But I do want to sincerely thank you all because you stick in there by me and I really, really appreciate it. None of this would be possible without you. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. We have a lot of amazing things planned for 2025. And between now and next week, which is January 2nd, 2025, that's when we'll be back next Thursday. It's basically a new year. So we will see you next year, everyone. Happy New Year and happy sewing.